Vivian Rowan raised her wine glass and tapped one red fingernail against it. "I suppose we should make it official," she said. "As of Friday, your bedroom belongs to me." She meant the room at the end of the hall with the bay window, the walnut drawers Daniel had built, and the walk-in shower I had paid to install after saving for 18 months. Daniel nodded beside me as if I were invisible. Aunt Ruth gave a confused little laugh. Vivian laughed louder. I took the sealed envelope from my lap and set it beside Vivian's plate. "There," I said. "Now it's official." Her laughter stopped as she reached for it. Daniel's hand landed on the table. Elise. He knew what was inside. That was the moment I understood the question was no longer whether my husband had betrayed me. It was how long he had been expecting me to cooperate with it. Vivian slid one finger under the flap. Around her plate, the remains of the dinner I had cooked were going cold. Rosemary chicken, glazed carrots, potatoes crisped in duck fat, because Vivian claimed olive oil made them taste sad. Daniel's aunt and uncle sat across from us, staring with the trapped expressions of people who had accepted dessert before realizing they were about to witness a family disaster. The first page was an email from Crescent Home Lending. Vivian's eyes moved down it. Her mouth tightened. The second was the cancellation from Mercer Renovations. The third was a printout of a text conversation between her and Daniel. She stopped at the line I had highlighted. "Once you're in the big room, she'll adjust. She always does." Vivian looked at her son. Daniel did not look at me. "You went through my phone?" he asked. Uncle Ken put down his fork. "That's your concern?" "I didn't go through anything." My voice sounded unnaturally calm. "You sent the contractor quote to our shared printer. The text exchange was attached to the email you forwarded him." Daniel blinked. I could see him reconstructing it. Standing in his truck, rushing between jobs, attaching the wrong file because he thought I was still at the office. There was something almost insulting about the carelessness. He had not even betrayed me skillfully. Vivian laid the papers on the table and folded them once, pressing the crease with her thumbnail. "The loan is canceled?" There was never a loan. There was an application Daniel couldn't complete without the homeowner. "I told you she'd come around," Daniel said to his mother. He said it softly as if I were the unreasonable person in the room and he was trying not to agitate me. Ruth's gaze shifted from him to me. "Elise, did you know Vivian had sold her condo?" I knew she was considering it. "I close Friday," Vivian said. "The movers are booked." Ken leaned back. "Where did you think you were moving?" Vivian stared at him. "Here." "Did Elise invite you?" "My son did." Daniel rubbed a thumb along the edge of his napkin. His work hands were broad and nicked, with a pale scar over one knuckle from the winter he rebuilt our bedroom drawers. I had kissed that scar so many times I could have found it in the dark. "It's my home too," he said. I waited for him to hear himself. He didn't. Vivian picked up her wine again. "The garage suite was always the long-term plan. Your bedroom is temporary. I need the shower. I'm not climbing in and out of that ridiculous tub in the guest bathroom." "You toured 3 apartments with walk-in showers," I said. "Boxes, Elise. They were boxes with stainless steel appliances. One had a balcony, over a parking lot." Ruth made a small sound that might have been a cough. Vivian turned toward her. "You know what it's like when you've worked your whole life to have something decent." Ruth's face changed. "I know what it's like to ask before taking someone's bedroom." Daniel shoved his chair back an inch. "Nobody is taking anything." "You just nodded when she said it belonged to her." "It was a toast. Mom likes drama." Vivian looked offended. I was trying to make it festive. That nearly made me laugh. I had spent all afternoon rolling pastry for the pear tart she liked, while she and my husband planned to evict me from my own bed festively. Daniel reached for my wrist under the table. I moved my hand to my water glass. "We should talk privately," he said. "We had 3 weeks to talk privately." I was trying to find the right time. "You printed floor plans for a room you weren't authorized to build. The garage is barely used. You stored $12,000 worth of tools in it. I can rent space." With what money? The question slipped out sharper than I intended. Daniel's face went still. There it was, the thing we had protected for years. Not his pride exactly, his version of himself. To everyone else, Daniel Rowan was a successful Finnish carpenter who chose interesting projects over predictable ones. He could walk into a restaurant, run his hand along the bar, and tell you which corners had been cut. He could make a crooked doorway look deliberate. What no one saw were the invoices I sent for him, the deposits I chased, the quarterly taxes I reminded him to pay, or the months when the mortgage came entirely from my salary because a client had changed an order after he had already bought the lumber. He was talented. He was generous. He once drove 40 miles in a storm to repair Ruth's kitchen window and refused a cent. He also believed money would appear whenever his goodness required it. Vivian looked between us. I have money from the condo. Then you can rent an apartment. I'm not wasting that money on rent. But you're comfortable spending mine? Elise, Daniel said. The warning in his voice was quiet and familiar. It had ended dozens of smaller disagreements. His mother was sensitive. His mother had been through enough. His mother didn't mean it that way. I was better with details, better with conflict, better at letting things go. I had mistaken being the stronger person for being the person who should always surrender. Ken pushed his chair back. Ruth, we ought to get going. We haven't had dessert, Vivian said. Ken looked at the pear tart on the sideboard as if it might explode. Ruth stood and touched my shoulder. Her hand lingered there. Dinner was wonderful. Take the tart, I said. Vivian's head snapped toward me. That's my favorite. I know. Ken carried it out in both hands. When the front door closed, the dining room became painfully quiet. The old radiator ticked beneath the window. 3 candles burned between us, and wax had begun spilling onto the linen runner Vivian gave me our first Christmas as a married couple. She gathered the documents and slid them back into the envelope. I assume this is your way of saying you're upset. It's my way of saying you are not moving into my bedroom. Where exactly am I supposed to go on Friday? That's a question you should have answered before selling your home. I did answer it. With Daniel. My husband can't give away my consent. Daniel stood. Can we stop talking like this is some hostile takeover? She needs a place for a few months. She had a place. She sold it. The building assessment was coming. The assessment was $9,000. She's clearing almost $200,000 from the sale. Vivian's cheeks flushed. You have no business discussing my finances. You discussed mine with a contractor. I offered to contribute. You offered $40,000 toward a garage suite estimated at $62,000. Daniel applied to borrow the rest against this house. Our house, Daniel said. I looked at him. He had moved in 6 months before our wedding. I had cleared half the closet before he brought over a single shirt. On the first night, he stood in the kitchen holding the old brass key I'd tied to a green ribbon and said no one had ever made room for him so easily. 4 years later, he had started calling the house ours. I had loved the sound of it. Now he used the word like a crowbar. You live here, I said. You contribute here. That doesn't allow you to borrow against a property you don't own. His jaw tightened. I put 2 years into this place, and I paid for every board you installed. You didn't pay me for the labor. You lived here without contributing to the mortgage while you did it. That was our agreement. Our agreement was that we were building a life. Was giving away my bedroom part of that? Vivian rose so quickly her chair scraped the floor. I will not stand here while you reduce my son to a tenant. I didn't do that. You keep saying your house, your money, your bedroom, because you keep trying to take them. Daniel looked exhausted now, which infuriated me. He had the expression of a man trapped between 2 unreasonable women, though he had built the trap himself and sent one of us floor plans. He followed Vivian into the hall. She pulled her camel coat from the closet, fumbling with one sleeve. Mom, wait. No, I understand perfectly. I'll find a hotel on Friday. I'll stay there until my money runs out, and then perhaps Elise will be satisfied. Vivian, your money would last 8 years at the Windsor Suites. She glared at me. You always have a number. Yes. Not everything is a purchase order. No, purchase orders require approval. Daniel closed his eyes. For 1 second, Vivian looked as though she might smile. She had always appreciated a good line, including one aimed at her, if it came from someone she wasn't currently trying to defeat. Then her mouth hardened. Friday, she said to Daniel. You handle it. He opened the door for her. She walked out without the envelope. It remained beside her plate, the flap torn, her lipstick printed faintly across one corner. Daniel stood with his back to me. Cold air moved through the open doorway. On the wall beside him hung a framed photograph of the porch before we restored it. Daniel had insisted on keeping the picture there because, he said, you should remember what something looked like before you loved it. Close the door, I said. He did. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his keys. They landed in the ceramic bowl on the entry table with a bright metallic clatter. The brass house key was still tied to the faded green ribbon. I stared at it. What? He said. When did you promise her our room? I didn't promise her the room. You told her I'd adjust. I was trying to calm her down. Why did she need calming down if you hadn't promised her anything? He walked past me into the dining room and began stacking plates. It was what he did when a conversation required an answer he did not want to give. He became useful. She was panicking about the condo sale. You know how she gets. Why was she selling before she had somewhere to live? She thought the suite was happening because you told her it was. I said I would talk to you. You applied for financing to see our options. You scheduled Mercer to start demolition Monday. He set the plates down too hard. A fork slid onto the floor. I was going to postpone it if you said no. You made all the arrangements before asking me, so my no would hurt everyone. His eyes lifted to mine. That was the first moment all evening when I knew I had reached him. He bent for the fork. That's not fair. It's exact. You want me to tell my mother she's on her own? I want you to tell her the truth. That she can't count on us? That she can't count on me without asking. He carried the plates to the kitchen. I followed, taking the envelope with me. The house smelled of browned butter and rosemary. On the counter, the dishwasher stood open because Daniel had promised to unload it that morning. Clean glasses remained upside down in the top rack. He turned on the faucet and started rinsing plates that did not need rinsing. I knew you'd react like this, he said. A strange heaviness settled in my chest. That message said I'd adjust. You do adjust. He glanced at me, and I saw that he meant it as praise. I thought of all the times I had moved meetings because one of his clients could only talk at noon, the vacations rescheduled around his jobs, the dinners reheated, the van payment quietly covered, the Thanksgiving when Vivian decided at 10 in the morning that she could not possibly host, and I cooked for 11 people without making her explain why. Daniel believed flexibility was my natural state, like eye color. What happens Friday? I asked. I'll talk to her tomorrow. That's not an answer. We'll find a compromise. There is no compromise in which she takes our bedroom. He shut off the faucet. Could you try not to say it like she's stealing your organs? Could you try to care that she's taking the place where I sleep beside you? His face softened then, but too late and for the wrong reason. He reached for me. I stepped back. Elise, I'm going to bed. We shouldn't leave it like this. You left it like this 3 weeks ago. I only found out tonight. In the bedroom, the bay window reflected the room back at me. Our bed, my gray sweater on the bench, Daniel's watch on the dresser. The walnut drawers he had built into the wall, each front cut from the same board so the grain flowed across them like water. I opened the top drawer for a t-shirt. My spare house key was gone. I checked beneath the folded scarves, then the small dish where I kept loose buttons. I checked the nightstand, although I knew I had left it in the drawer after the locksmith made it for a visiting friend the previous spring. Daniel stopped in the doorway. I looked past him toward the entry hall, toward the ceramic bowl and the brass key hanging from its green ribbon. "Where is the spare?" He did not ask which spare. That silence changed the shape of the room. Finally, he rubbed a hand over his mouth. "Mom needed a key for the movers." "She has one already." "It's just a copy." "Where is it?" "Elise, don't." I walked toward him. He moved aside, and I went down the hall to the bowl. I lifted his key by the ribbon. Fresh silver showed along one edge of the old brass, where a cutting machine had scraped it. He had not taken the spare. He had taken my wedding key, copied it, and put it back where I would touch it every morning without knowing. "When?" I asked. Daniel stayed at the bedroom door. "Last Tuesday." Last Tuesday, he had brought home Thai food. We had eaten on the bedroom floor because the dining table was covered with his drawings. He had rested his head against my knee while I ran my fingers through his hair. The garage suite plans had been under our plates. I lowered the key into the bowl. It made one small, clean sound. "Your mother isn't waiting until Friday, is she?" Daniel's gaze shifted toward the front window. Headlights swept across the curtains. A vehicle door slammed outside, followed by another. Then came the hydraulic groan of a truck lowering something heavy to the curb. Daniel did not move. Neither did I. A key entered the lock. The door opened 3 inches before the chain caught. Vivian pushed again. "Elise?" I had fastened the chain while Daniel was rinsing dishes. A habit, not foresight, but the small strip of brass felt like the only object in the house still on my side. I opened the door just far enough to see her. She stood on the porch in her camel coat, a leather overnight bag at her feet. Behind her, 2 men were guiding a cedar chest down the ramp of a moving truck. "What is this?" I asked. "The first load." "You said Friday." "The large truck comes Friday. These are the pieces I don't trust them to mix with everything else." Daniel came up behind me. "Mom, I thought you were just bringing boxes." "And grandmother's chest, and the silver cabinet, and my clothes for tomorrow." One of the movers looked toward us. "Ma'am, where do you want this?" "The bedroom at the end of the hall," Vivian called. "No," I said. He stopped halfway up the walk. Vivian pressed her palm to the door as if I were keeping her out of her own house. "I'm tired, Elise." "So am I." "I've been packing for 10 hours. I cooked you dinner, which I appreciated until you used it to stage an ambush." I looked at the overnight bag. "Did you intend to sleep here tonight?" She glanced at Daniel. That was answer enough. "Vivian, the guest room is available for tonight. The furniture stays on the truck." Her eyebrows rose. "You're permitting me one night?" "I'm offering you one night because it's late." Daniel leaned closer. "Let her in." I unhooked the chain but kept my hand on the door. The movers carried the cedar chest back up the ramp after I told them I was the homeowner and had not approved delivery. Vivian watched with her lips pressed into a white line. The silver cabinet followed. She instructed them to be careful in the tone of a woman overseeing the destruction of a national monument. Her garment bags came inside. So did 3 taped cartons labeled First Night, Master Bath, and Daniel's office, though Daniel did not have an office. Vivian rolled her suitcase toward the hallway. "Guest room," I said. "I heard you." She turned left with enough force to clip the wall. One of the garment bags slid from her shoulder and landed on the floor. Daniel bent to pick it up. She stopped him. "Apparently, I need to carry my own things now." "Mom, I'm fine." She was excellent at making assistance feel like restitution. I took my key from the ceramic bowl and carried it into the bedroom. Daniel came in several minutes later. He closed the door carefully, though Vivian was opening and shutting drawers across the hall hard enough to make privacy pointless. "You humiliated her," he said. "She arrived with a truck after I told her she couldn't move in. She was already on the way." "You knew." "I knew she wanted to bring some things." "She had clothes for tomorrow. She has a closing walkthrough in the morning. Her place is packed." "And she couldn't sleep there because—" He sat on the bench beneath the bay window. "Because she thought she was welcome here." "Did you tell her she was?" He looked at the floor. I changed into my t-shirt in the bathroom. When I came out, he was turning down the bed as if the evening could still be folded into a normal shape. "You can sleep on the couch," I said. His hand stopped on the comforter. "Seriously?" "Yes. I'm not leaving our bedroom because you're angry. Your mother just unlocked my front door with a copy of my key. Our key. You keep correcting the pronoun after making the decision alone." He picked up his pillow. "I'm not doing this at midnight. It's 10:40. "Thank you, Elise. Very useful." He walked out. I locked the bedroom door. The old latch was flimsy enough that Daniel could have opened it with a credit card. We both knew that. The fact that he did not try became the closest thing to tenderness he offered me that night. At 6, I woke to the smell of coffee and butter. Vivian was in my kitchen wearing a blue silk robe, frying an egg in my smallest skillet. She'd already rearranged the coffee mugs. The everyday white ones were on the upper shelf, and her 2 thin porcelain cups sat at eye level. Daniel slept on the couch with one forearm over his face. "Good morning," she said. I opened the cabinet and moved her cups aside to reach mine. "There's coffee. I can see that. I slept terribly. That mattress lists toward the window. It's 6 years old. The frame is crooked." Daniel assembled it. She paused with her spatula under the egg. "Then perhaps the floor is crooked." A corner of my mouth moved despite me. Vivian saw it. For half a second, we were ourselves again, or the version of ourselves that had existed before she mistook my accommodation for surrender. She slid the egg onto a plate. "I shouldn't have come last night." "No?" But the movers charge by the hour, and Daniel assured me the disagreement was about the financing, not about my staying here. "It's about both." "He said you were overwhelmed." I looked toward the couch. "He said you'd been under pressure at work," she continued, "that the hotel group is restructuring. We're changing 2 suppliers." He made it sound rather more serious. He needed me to sound unstable. Vivian's expression sharpened. He did not use that word. He didn't have to. Daniel stirred beneath his blanket. Vivian lowered her voice. "My son loves you." "I know." That was the problem. If he had been cold or cruel, I could have understood the shape of the danger sooner. Daniel loved me. He also believed loving me gave him advance forgiveness for things he had not admitted doing. "He's been worried about me," Vivian said. "So have I. I sent you 6 apartment listings." "I didn't want an apartment." "You wanted my room." "I wanted a home." There was no self-pity in the way she said it, just naked insistence. For a moment, I saw what Daniel saw, a woman standing at the edge of a future she had not pictured, with her furniture in boxes and the rooms that proved she had done well about to belong to strangers. Then she added, "You have more space than you need." And the moment passed. I showered, dressed, and took my coffee to the car. At the office, I approved 600 bath towels, rejected a shipment of miniature shampoo bottles with leaking caps, and spent 20 minutes discussing whether a new steak knife felt substantial enough for the Charleston property. Ordinary decisions steadied me. Every request had a name attached to it. Every approval created a record. Nobody sent 30 dining chairs to a hotel and called it a conversation starter. My phone lit up throughout the morning. "Daniel, can we reset tonight?" "Daniel, Mom found a place for her furniture for now." "Daniel, I canceled Friday dinner with Ruth and Ken." Then Vivian, "Could you please tell me where you keep extra hangers?" I did not answer any of them. Just before lunch, I opened Daniel's business folder on my computer. It held copies of every estimate, invoice, insurance certificate, and tax receipt I had organized over the previous 5 years. 3 invoices were outstanding. One client had been waiting 9 days for a revised bill. Another had paid a deposit Daniel had not recorded. I drafted an email. Effective today, I'm no longer handling Rowan Finish Millworks billing, scheduling, or bookkeeping. Attached are the current account notes and outstanding items. Please change the recovery email and passwords by Friday. I read it twice. Then I sent it. His call came before I could close the folder. "You're quitting?" "I can't quit a job I've never been paid to do." "Okay. You're not doing this because of 3 invoices. No, I have a site meeting in 40 minutes. Then I suggest you look at the attachment. Elise, come on. The softness in his voice was practiced, but not false. Daniel had always been able to sound like the two of us were sharing a joke, even when I was the joke. I have to work, I said. So do I. Yes. I ended the call. At lunch, I changed the deposit instructions for my paycheck. Enough would still move into our joint account to cover the utilities and insurance. The mortgage had always come from my personal account. I removed the automatic transfer that covered Daniel's van whenever the business account ran short. It was a quiet click, no thunder, no surge of triumph, just a small gray confirmation box telling me the change would begin with the next pay period. I stared at it longer than I needed to. By 5, Daniel had called 4 more times. The last voicemail was stripped of softness. You don't get to yank the rug out from under everything because you're mad at me. We're supposed to be a team. Call me. I drove home in rain. The moving truck was in our driveway, not the small one from the night before. The full-size truck occupied the entire length of the drive, its rear doors open toward the garage. Men moved beneath portable lights, carrying lamps, cartons, dining chairs, and rolled rugs into my house. Friday had come 2 days early. I parked at the curb and sat gripping the steering wheel. Through the front window, I could see Vivian directing traffic in a cream sweater. Daniel stood beside her holding a clipboard. For a moment, I had the absurd thought that I should leave before they noticed me. Drive to a hotel, order room service, let them finish stealing the house and send me photographs when they were done. Then a mover emerged carrying Vivian's silver cabinet toward the front steps. I got out. Daniel saw me first. His face changed. Elise? What happened to storing her furniture? The unit had water damage. Vivian appeared behind him. The ceiling was dripping onto the 3rd floor. So you found another unit. There wasn't time. You found time to reschedule a moving company. The buyers wanted possession early, she said. They offered to cover the change fee. And you accepted. It was $1,400. There was always a number when it benefited her. A mover approached with a hand truck stacked with boxes. I stepped in front of the door. You can put everything in the garage. Daniel's grip tightened on the clipboard. My tools are in there. Move them. In the rain? I don't care. Vivian folded her arms. My upholstered furniture is not going into a garage. Then it can stay on the truck. The mover looked from me to Daniel. We're paid through 8. I'll pay the additional hour, Vivian said. Take the bedroom pieces down the hall. No, I said. Daniel came close enough that only I could hear him. Don't do this in front of the crew. You created an audience. They charge $800 if we stop and rebook. Then stop. We'll put our things in the dining room. Garage. Dining room. It was the first decision he had offered me all week, and it was one in which both choices gave his mother my space. I looked at the rain running off the truck roof, at the wet footprints already darkening the hall floor, at Vivian's silver cabinet standing beneath the porch light. Dining room, I said. Nothing goes into the bedroom. Daniel exhaled. He mistook the breath for victory. For the next 2 hours, my dining room disappeared behind someone else's life. The table was pushed against the wall. Chairs were stacked in the kitchen. The envelope from dinner, which I had left on the counter that morning, vanished beneath a carton marked Crystal. Vivian watched every item come through the door. She knew the history of each one. The chest belonged to her grandmother. The cabinet came from an estate sale outside Savannah. A floor lamp had survived 3 moves and 1 disastrous electrician. She could be affectionate with objects in a way she rarely managed with people. When the truck was empty, Daniel tipped the crew from our joint account. I saw the notification on my phone. Vivian made tea. She set one of her porcelain cups in front of Daniel and offered me a white mug from the upper shelf. I won't be staying in the guest room, she said. Daniel stared into his tea. The frame is damaging my back. I'll take the main bedroom tonight, and you two can decide which of you prefers the office. No, I said. Vivian looked at Daniel. You said we were done fighting about this. I turned to him. He rubbed both hands over his face. I said we would make it work. How? I'll sleep in the office. You can sleep with Mom in the bedroom. Vivian recoiled. I'm not sharing a bed. Neither was I. I walked down the hall. The bedroom door stood open. Vivian's garment bags hung from the brass hooks. Her suitcase lay across our comforter. My gray sweater had been moved from the bench to the floor. Daniel followed me. She just needs tonight. You said that last night. I'll take her to see apartments tomorrow. She doesn't want an apartment. I'll convince her. I lifted Vivian's suitcase from the bed. Daniel caught the handle. For a second, we both held it. Let go, I said. Elise, please. You moved her in while I was at work. She had nowhere else to go. You made sure of that. He lowered his voice. If you throw her things into the hall, I don't know how we come back from it. I looked at his hand over mine. He had given his mother a key, applied for a loan against my house, moved her furniture in, and put her suitcase on my bed. Still, he spoke as if the irreversible thing would be my refusal. I released the handle. Neither do I said. I took my pillow, my work clothes, and the green ribbon with the brass key. Then I walked into the office and shut the door behind me. The office door did not have a lock. I pushed the desk against it anyway. The room was 8 feet wide, painted the pale green Daniel once described as dentist office calm. A printer occupied the only surface large enough for my lamp. Rolled drawings leaned in one corner. On the wall, Daniel had pinned samples of maple, walnut, and white oak above a note I wrote him 2 years earlier. You make ugly corners beautiful. I pulled it down. Across the hall, Vivian opened drawers. Wood slid against wood, one after another. Daniel spoke too quietly for me to hear. Then came the soft thump of my sweater being placed somewhere. I tied the green ribbon around my wrist and slept in my work clothes on the fold-out chair. At 3 a.m, I heard Daniel outside the door. Elise? I kept still. His fingers touched the knob but did not turn it. I'm sorry, he said. He waited. Then the floor creaked as he walked away. In the morning, Vivian had hung her cream drapes over the bay window. My linen curtains lay folded on the bench, with their rings removed and placed neatly on top. She had not damaged anything. That made it worse. She was not behaving like an intruder. She was improving the room according to her taste. Those come down, I said. She stood barefoot beside the bed, holding one end of a measuring tape. They're blackout lined. Take them down. I slept past 6 for the first time in years. You've slept in this room once, and I slept well. Daniel appeared behind me carrying 3 coffees. He held one out. Oat milk, no sugar. I walked past him. At work, I called a real estate attorney recommended by our regional finance director. Naomi Patel listened without interrupting while I described the title, the mortgage, Daniel's work on the house, and Vivian's furniture filling my dining room. You can give his mother written notice that she doesn't have permission to reside there, she said, but your husband lives in the marital home and invited her. If you change the locks or put her belongings outside, Daniel can make the situation expensive very quickly. It's already expensive. I mean legally. Can he claim the house? He can claim an interest in some appreciation based on marital contributions and improvements. That doesn't mean he owns half. It means arguing about the number could cost both of you. I looked through my office window at a cart loaded with towel samples. What if I want him out? Then we document, negotiate, or file. None of those gets him out tonight. What gets his mother out tonight? A hotel reservation she chooses to use. I almost laughed. Naomi asked me to send the purchase records, mortgage statements, renovation receipts, and anything showing our financial arrangement. Every file existed. I had organized most of them for Daniel. That irony followed me home. The dining room was impassable. Vivian had opened 4 cartons and arranged crystal glasses along the sideboard. The sealed envelope from dinner sat on top of the silver cabinet. Daniel was at the table with his laptop, trying to produce an invoice. "What's the billing address for Carlton?" he asked. "In your client file." I can't find it. It's under Carlton. He stared at me. Vivian emerged from the bedroom wearing my white bathrobe. I had bought it at a hotel supplier's sample sale. My initials were stitched inside the collar. She looked down when she saw my face. Daniel said it was for guests. Take it off. Elise, don't be ridiculous. Take off my robe. She glanced at Daniel. He closed his laptop. Mom, just change. I'm already dressed under it. Then it should be easy. That surprised all three of us. Vivian's lips parted. Then she walked into the bedroom and shut the door. Daniel waited until we heard the closet open. I'm trying, he said. No, you're managing whichever woman is most upset. What do you want from me? Tell her she has to leave. I'm taking her to see the Windsor tomorrow. She'll say no. Then I'll take her somewhere else. He sounded tired. He had slept on the couch for 3 nights, answering business emails at dawn and returning them to me by accident because my address still populated first. One client had questioned a materials charge. Another wanted the revised cabinet drawings immediately. Daniel was discovering that making beautiful things and running a business were separate jobs. His phone rang. He looked at the screen and handed it to me by reflex. It's Carlton. I let it ring in his palm. He gave a bitter laugh. Right. Vivian returned carrying the robe. She laid it over the back of a dining chair. Tomorrow at 11, Daniel told her. We're touring Windsor Suites. I canceled that. His head turned. Why? Because I'm not renting a furnished shoebox while I have $40,000 committed to this house. You don't have money committed, I said. You propose spending it. I sold my condo based on Daniel's representation. Daniel looked at the table. Vivian noticed. What aren't you telling me? I told you we were working it out. You told me Elise had agreed in principle. I said she liked the idea of converting the garage. I said it would increase resale value someday, I said. That was before you were part of the plan. Vivian's face lost color. Daniel pushed his chair back. Can we not dissect every conversation? What exactly did I sell my home for, she asked. To get out before the assessment. I could have paid the assessment. You said you didn't want to, because you offered me something better. He looked toward me for help. It was such an old movement that my body almost responded. I nearly supplied the softer wording, the missing logic, the bridge between what he had promised and what he could deliver. Instead, I picked up my robe and went to the office. On Sunday, Daniel invited Ruth and Ken without telling me. At 4, he came to the office door holding a grocery list. Mom wants to do dinner at 6. Then Mom should go shopping. She doesn't drive after dark. It's 4. Elise, I opened the spreadsheet Naomi had asked for. I have work. It's Sunday. For Rowan Finish and millwork, apparently. I'm documenting 5 years of unpaid administration. His eyes narrowed. For what? To understand our finances. You called a lawyer. It was not a question. Yes. He stood very still. Behind him, Vivian carried serving bowls from one stack to another, pretending not to listen. I thought we were trying to fix this, he said. You moved your mother into our bedroom. And I'm trying to find her an apartment. You've been trying for 4 days. Because every place she likes costs too much. She has money. She needs that money for the buy-in. What buy-in? Vivian set down a bowl. Daniel lowered his voice. If she contributes to the mortgage and renovations, we can put something in writing. A life tenancy maybe, or an ownership percentage. In my house. In our home. You're doing it again. Doing what? Designing the paperwork after making the promise. His face hardened. Fine, I'll get my own lawyer. Ruth arrived carrying wine. Ken carried another pear tart in a bakery box, which he presented to me with a solemnity that made me laugh for the first time all week. Dinner was rotisserie chicken, bagged salad, and rolls Vivian burned because she was explaining how my oven ran hot. We ate with our plates balanced on our knees. Her furniture occupied the dining room, and every flat surface in the living room held a lamp or framed print. This is cozy, Vivian said. Ken looked around. Is it? Daniel tried to discuss a restaurant renovation he had bid on. Vivian interrupted to tell Ruth about the apartment tours. Too narrow, too dark. One had a lobby that smelled like cinnamon all day. I like cinnamon, Ruth said. You don't want to live inside it. What's wrong with the Windsor? Nothing if you enjoy watching strangers cross a parking lot. Ruth took a bite of chicken. You watch traffic from your condo balcony. That was a view. It was Route 9. Vivian put down her fork. I had expected to be with family. You are with family, Ruth said. You're sitting 6 feet from Elise because your sofa is between you. Daniel set his plate on the coffee table. Can everybody stop? Ruth looked at him. Did you tell her Elise agreed? I told her Elise would understand. That isn't what I asked. I knew Elise would fight it at first. The room changed. Ruth's voice became very quiet. At first, Daniel looked at me, then away. She gets attached to how she thinks things should happen. Then she works out what's practical. So you knew she didn't consent, Ruth said. You just thought she'd get tired. No, that's not. You said at dinner she'd adjust. Vivian stared at her plate. Ruth stood. She carried her plate into the kitchen, then returned for Ken's. We're leaving, she said. Daniel rose. Aunt Ruth, you asked me here because you thought I'd help wear her down. I asked you here because we're family. Those appear to be the same thing to you. After they left, Daniel took his coat from the hall. Where are you going? Vivian asked. Out. You can't leave us like this. He looked at the block dining room, the bedroom door, then at me. I can't stay like this. The door closed behind him. Vivian folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. He's under enormous pressure, she said. Most of it has your forwarding address. Her eyes flashed, but the anger did not hold. She looked suddenly older in my living room, surrounded by everything she had saved and nowhere she truly belonged. You think I wanted to depend on him? I think you wanted to depend on me without having to acknowledge it. She stood and gathered the plates. You make every kindness sound like an invoice. No, I make every invoice visible after someone calls it kindness. The next afternoon, an email arrived from Daniel's attorney. He was claiming a marital interest in the house based on documented labor, improvements, and contributions. He requested that neither of us dispose of property, alter access, or interfere with occupancy while the value was determined. Attached was a list of renovations Daniel had completed. Some numbers were inflated, some were fair. At the bottom, beside the bedroom built-ins, he had assigned a labor value of $11,400. I stared at the walnut drawers across the hall. He had priced the room before giving it away. Naomi called me after reviewing the letter. He has leverage, she said. Not as much as he thinks, but enough to drag this out. What would a clean agreement look like? An appraisal, credit for documented contributions. Either you refinance and buy out whatever portion you settle on, or the property is sold and the disputed appreciation is divided. The word sold struck harder than I expected. That evening, I found Daniel and Vivian at the dining table, which they had excavated from beneath the boxes. A measuring tape, a calculator, and copies of neighborhood sales lay between them. Vivian looked almost cheerful. If the appraisal lands where Daniel expects, she said, my condo proceeds could cover your equity. Then everyone gets what they need. My equity, I repeated. Daniel pushed a page toward me. Just look at the numbers. They had calculated a future without me and called it a solution. I sat down. Daniel's expression softened with relief. I picked up the appraisal request, turned it over, and wrote Naomi's number on the back. All right, I said. Let's find out what the house is worth. The appraiser arrived carrying a laser measure and wearing paper covers over his shoes. Vivian met him at the door. The original floors are under the rugs, she said, and the primary bedroom has custom walnut built-ins. He looked past her to me. Mrs. Rowan, that's me. Vivian stepped aside. Daniel followed the appraiser through the house, pointing out every repair he had made. He explained the porch supports, the rewired dining room, the bathroom tile he had installed twice because the first batch varied in color. His voice warmed as he spoke. He loved the house most when it could be reduced to craft. In the bedroom, Vivian had arranged her perfume bottles across my dresser. The cream curtains were drawn against the afternoon sun. "Those window treatments aren't included," she said. The appraiser made a note. Neither was the woman standing beside them, but nobody mentioned that. The report arrived 3 days later. The house was worth more than Daniel had estimated and less than Vivian needed it to be. After the mortgage, the equity looked generous until Naomi separated what I had brought into the marriage from the appreciation Daniel could reasonably argue he helped create. His attorney asked for $72,000. Naomi recommended offering $46,000. "They'll come down," she said. "What if I keep the house?" "You can afford the refinance. It would tighten things for a while, especially after fees. But yes." The answer should have relieved me. Instead, I pictured signing new loan papers, returning to the bedroom, and pulling Vivian's cream curtains from the rods. I pictured Daniel's walnut drawers opening beneath my hands. Every corner of the house had become evidence in an argument. Naomi mistook my silence. "You don't have to decide today." Daniel decided for me. He called from a restaurant job site, the whine of a saw behind him. "Mom will put in $180,000, he said. "With my share of the equity, I can refinance the balance." "Can you?" "My accountant thinks so." "You don't have an accountant." I talked to one. The fact that he had finally hired help would have been funny if he hadn't done it to remove me from my own house. "What are you offering me?" I asked. He named a number. It was $80,000 below what the appraisal and purchase records supported. "That's not my equity." "It gets you out clean." "Out of the house I bought." "You said you wanted us gone." "I said your mother couldn't live in my bedroom." He lowered his voice. "I'm trying to keep something from being destroyed here." "You mean the house?" "I mean all of it." Behind him, someone called his name. "I lost the restaurant bid," he said. I had not asked. The revised estimate went out late. They said it showed a lack of organization. "I'm sorry." "You knew Carlton was waiting." "I told you." "You could have sent it in 5 minutes." "I could have done a lot of things for 5 more minutes." He breathed into the phone. "The van payment bounced too," he said. "You received 3 notices about the automatic transfer." "I didn't think you'd actually let it happen." There it was again. Not that he had not been warned, that he had not believed my warning could become a consequence. "I'm not accepting the offer," I said. He swore softly. "Then what do you want?" I looked at the green ribbon tied around my key. "I want the house listed." The saw continued whining behind him. "Elise, you can accept Naomi's settlement figure from the sale proceeds, or you can spend the next year arguing for more. But I'm not refinancing to stay, and I'm not selling my home to you and Vivian at a discount." "You'd sell it to strangers." "Yes." "You love that house." I did. His voice broke on a small, involuntary breath. That was the cruelest thing I had done to him, and all I had done was stop protecting him from the truth. At mediation, Daniel sat beside his attorney in a blue shirt I had bought for our anniversary. He had lost weight. His wedding ring remained on his finger, and I kept seeing it when he turned pages. Vivian was not supposed to attend, but she waited in the lobby with a folder of her own calculations. At one point, she sent Daniel a text so long his phone vibrated against the table for 5 full seconds. He turned it face down. The lawyers settled on $51,000 for his documented labor and contributions. I agreed because the number was fair enough, and because every additional hour in that room cost money. I preferred to spend building a life he could not enter. Daniel agreed to the sale, then asked for 90 days in the house after closing. "No," I said. "Mom needs time." "She has had time. Her furniture can go into storage." He looked at Naomi, perhaps hoping she would translate me into someone negotiable. She did not. We settled on vacating before the house went on the market. Daniel would take his tools and personal belongings. Vivian would move her furniture. I would pay the mortgage and ordinary household costs until closing. Daniel would keep his business debts, including the van. When we stepped into the lobby, Vivian stood. Well? Daniel handed her the settlement summary. She read the first page, then the second. You agreed to sell. He looked at me. She won't keep it. You can't make that decision alone. I didn't. Vivian turned on me. You'd rather destroy the home than let us have it. The home was the part where I belonged. You own it. Those turned out to be different things. She looked down at the papers again. Her condo proceeds were enough for security, but not enough to purchase the craftsman and carry Daniel's uneven income while preserving the life she wanted. She had not sold herself into poverty. She had sold certainty for a promise her son never had the authority to make. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. Ruth, who had driven me to mediation, stood from a chair near the window. The Windsor has an opening, she said. 1 bedroom, courtyard side, no parking lot view. Vivian stared at her. I called, Ruth added. You can afford it. I don't want to live at the Windsor. Then choose somewhere else, but choose. Vivian folded the settlement papers and gave them back to Daniel. For once, he did not reach for her as she walked away. Packing the house took nearly a month. Vivian rented a 2-bedroom apartment 6 miles away. It was not the Windsor. The lobby smelled of lemon cleaner rather than cinnamon, which she reported as a victory. Daniel took the 2nd bedroom temporarily. Though he signed the lease with her, the morning her movers came, she supervised in silence. Her cream drapes came down. My linen ones had disappeared into a carton, and neither of us could find the rings. Her cedar chest scraped the hallway wall on the way out. The mover apologized. Vivian touched the pale mark with 2 fingers. Daniel can repair that. No, I said, he can't. She looked at me, then lowered her hand. The silver cabinet went next. Beneath it, flattened against the floor, lay the envelope I had placed beside her plate. One corner was bent. Her lipstick print still marked the paper. Vivian picked it up. I suppose you'll want to keep this as a trophy. No. She held it a moment longer, then put it into her handbag. Daniel moved out the following day. He took the tools from the garage, his clothes, the drawings from the office, and the pillow he had carried from our bedroom after that first dinner. He left the wood samples pinned to the pale green wall. We stood together in the empty bedroom while he removed the last screws from the curtain rods. Sunlight filled the bay window for the first time in weeks. The buyers will probably paint the built-ins, he said. The house isn't listed yet. People paint walnut now. I see it all the time. He ran his hand across the top drawer. I made these for you. I know. I thought that mattered. It did. He turned. Did you ever think about letting me fix it? You kept asking me to adjust while you fought to keep what you'd taken. I told her she had to move. After the lawyers, I didn't know how to choose. You chose at dinner. His eyes closed briefly. I nodded because I thought you'd be mad, he said. Then you'd start asking questions. Then you'd figure out the practical version. The practical version of losing my bedroom, of helping her. She wasn't asking for help. She was announcing ownership. I know that now. You knew then. He leaned against the drawers. She was so relieved when I told her. I couldn't take it back. So you thought I would carry it? He nodded. It was barely a movement. That small honesty hurt more than every argument we had rehearsed. He slipped off his wedding ring and set it on the windowsill. If I'd apologized that night, he asked, would you have stayed? I don't know. It was the only honest answer I had. If you'd stopped the truck, maybe. If you'd taken her key, maybe. If you'd looked at me when she said the room was hers. He stared at the ring. But you kept choosing, I said. So eventually I did too. The house sold after 7 weeks on the market. A couple made an offer just below asking and requested the walnut drawers remain untouched. I accepted before Daniel could tell me they might have paid more. After the mortgage, fees, and Daniel's settlement, I had enough to rent a smaller apartment and decide what I wanted without turning the decision into an emergency. Daniel kept working. His business did not disappear, though he lost clients while learning the parts I had handled. He hired a bookkeeper for 6 hours a month and complained once, through Naomi, that her rate was excessive. I sent back no reply. On closing morning, I walked through the empty house, checking windows and cabinets. The dining room held only rectangles of unfaded wallpaper where Vivian's furniture had stood. The scrape from the cedar chest had been repaired by the buyer's painter. On the kitchen counter sat the envelope. Vivian had left it there some time before surrendering her key. Inside were the canceled loan application, the contractor notice, Daniel's printed message, and the bright new copy of my brass key. No note. I carried the envelope outside. The buyers were waiting with their agent. I gave them both brass keys. The woman who loved the built-ins tied them to a blue cord so she would not lose them in her bag. Months later, morning light came through the windows of my apartment without passing through anyone else's curtains. I kept little furniture. One white mug, one lamp, a table just large enough for two, though most nights it held only my dinner and a book. My new key was plain silver and too light in my hand. I untied the faded green ribbon from my wrist, looped it through the key, and pulled the knot tight.